What if I told you that the things I gave up in my 20s to get wealthy are the exact things I now have in abundance at the age of 40? The theme of this story is delayed gratification and what I did to actually make sure it paid off, because not everybody that delays gratification wins in the end. I sacrificed my 20s to get where I am today. And today, I've been in business for over 20 years and my businesses generate well over $10 million in annual revenue. And one of the biggest things that I get nervous about is that people see maybe my spending habits today, the house that I live in, the car that I drive, the expensive purses, the vacation houses, all of that. But I need you to know that is not how I started. And those behaviors or things that I bought only came after the things that I started to do in my 20s and even in my 30s. And that's what this video today is going to be about. Early on, I heard Dave Ramsey say the phrase, live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. And I fully grasped what that concept meant. My 20s were filled with sacrifices. When most kids at 20 are pretty much going to school, maybe they have a part-time job or not. What my life looked like at the age of 20, I was going to school full-time at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, getting my bachelor's degree in business administration and marketing. I was teaching dance classes every single Sunday in my parents' backyard, already kind of growing my business, but at the time I didn't know it was my business. I was teaching at a local dance studio, getting paid to teach there. And then I was working Friday, Saturday nights, bartending. And the reason was because I had to fund my passion project. I had to make money somehow, and dance wasn't making me any money. Teaching for free in my parents' backyard wasn't making me any money. So when my friends would go out on Fridays and Saturdays, I would go to work from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. I did things that most people would say, absolutely not, no way. And it wasn't easy because I had to put my ego aside. I am probably very similar to you. I am a high achiever. I never settle. I always want what's best. I am future forward. I am a goal setter, big achiever, right? If that resonates with you, you get what I'm saying. When I had to put my ego aside and say no to stupid little things like, hey, do you guys want to go to a movie tonight? And I had a quick look up, what are movie prices? Okay, they're $12 for a ticket. Do I want to put $12 into a movie, or do I want to put $12 into my business? I would choose business. And my friends would look at me like, Stacy, it's $12. You'll be fine. Why are you being so cheap, right? I felt like I just said no to everything. When they would say, do you want to go to Olive Garden? I would say, what if I went to the grocery store and I cooked everything here and we all chipped in for probably like $30 in groceries and we all split the cost and saved money? And my friends would go, okay, fine, right? I was that person in my 20s. And you might be thinking, do I really need to sacrifice the coffee at Starbucks? Do I really need to? Well, I'm not telling you you have to. I'm just telling you what I did to get to where I am today. And everything that I have today was well worth the saying no to a $12 movie. Every decision I made, I asked myself, how will this impact my future? So at the age of 23, I bought my first house. And most people, when they buy their first house, it's a single family home and you're very, very excited. No, I convinced my husband to buy a duplex, which of course he didn't want to do. I didn't really want to either, but I was like, oh my goodness, we could live on the bottom, we could rent upstairs, and I figured out by watching all of these like Robert Kiyosaki videos that the top could almost pay for the entire mortgage. And I remember, I think they paid us like $800 or $900 a month in rent, which meant all we had left on our mortgage was $400. So we bought this house, and we actually bought it in 2008, so we paid at the top of the market. And what was so amazing about that situation was a lot of my friends who bought in 2008, they were stuck in that home. They couldn't leave for a very, very long time because they were underwater. Well, 2 years into that duplex, making a lot of money, we kept the duplex and we just built our next house, and we were able to save the duplex and it keep producing money. So it was one of the best decisions that I made that had just paid off, right? Now, again, I have to let my ego go, because does my ego, like I could have bought or built a single family home and showed off to everybody else too. But instead I'm like, no guys, I'm doing something a little differently here. And everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy, right? I still have at the time all of my friends from high school. I'm 18, 19, 20, 21, right? All of that. Still have my same friends and they're looking at me like I'm very different, right? Still supportive, but just kind of questioning and looking at me like I'm crazy, right? Which, of course, I wasn't the normal girl in her 20s. You've got to be okay at people not understanding you, right? And just doing it anyway. On the weekends before I would pick up my 10 o'clock shift, Susie Orman was probably on at like 7 or 8 o'clock, and I would watch Susie Orman before going into work. And when she had this like, can I afford it segment, I would start to get so good at when she thought somebody had the budget and when she didn't. And I really started to live my life that way. I wasn't learning or taking advice from my friends that were my same age. I was looking up to people that were like 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. I was hanging out with Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, or I would go to business conferences and make really good friends with 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds, which is definitely not common for my age group, but they had the type of goals that I wanted and they were achieving those goals. And I wanted to put myself in the room where I could say, I want to do this. And somebody next to me would say, you should go for that. Like, I think you could do it, versus maybe my friends who weren't doing that kind of stuff, right? Not that they were never, I actually had a really great group of friends and they were always supportive, but they wouldn't be somebody to say, yeah, you should do X, Y, Z, because in their mind, it probably wasn't possible or even realistic. So I really had to make sure that I was getting advice from the people who had already done it. And unfortunately for me at that time, it was people that were older than me. It's interesting because I was very cheap personally, very lean personally, would not spend like any money on anything. But then I would be very like a huge risk taker in spending money professionally, right? If I realized, oh wow, okay, those door hangers, if I bought 10,000 door hangers for $100 and I walked around subdivisions and I individually placed them, I could get a X return on my investment. Yes, let's do it. And I would just keep going and spending more and more money. And I would just be this crazy yes person in business, obviously taking calculated risks, right? And then personally, it was like, no, thank you, nope, don't need that, etc. I remember at one point went into my whole entire house and sold everything we were not using on Craigslist. One of our funniest stories is my husband goes, where is the Wii? Okay, Nintendo Wii. And I'm like, oh, I sold it 6 months ago. And the fact that you didn't even notice for 6 months tells me we really don't need a Wii. So this is how crazy I was, literally just getting rid of everything. Now, my husband at the time, probably not loving how crazy strict I was and how I was being, but today he definitely loves that it has paid off. Back in the day, what we did was we had this kind of like the envelope system like Dave Ramsey talks about. And my husband and I gave us each $60 per week as our fun money. Oh my goodness, like $60 per week is nothing. And I basically was like, we're not buying fast food, we're not doing this, we're not going to movies, etc. But if you want to go to a movie or you want to go eat out, you've got $60 to budget. So crazy just to even realize like how strict I was. And of course my husband would spend like every dollar of his $60 and I would keep as much of it as I possibly could and just shove it right back into the business. I just saw the bigger picture. Like there was never a doubt in my mind that this wasn't going to take off. Of course, many lessons learned along the way, but I do believe this was a huge part of it. And I think what's really scary for business owners today, remember, I started my business 2002. So social media didn't exist. Facebook wasn't a thing. I didn't have distractions of everybody's buying this and everybody's got this and they're going on vacation here. I kind of checked out of my friends group, right? So they were going on spring break, I wasn't, but I wasn't seeing their spring break photos, right? Today, you are having to look, what are people buying and what is the highlight reel on social media showing? And I can guarantee it's probably a lot harder for you to have delayed gratification today than it was for me back in the day. But that just means you've got to get stronger and really be disciplined to say, I'm going to unfollow this person who's doing XYZ because I don't want to get sucked into overspending personally when I'm not quite there yet professionally. Starting a business is incredibly hard. People actually say to me all the time, are you gonna sell Well Oiled? Are you gonna sell the studios? And the thought of starting another business does not sound fun to me at all. Like I always say to them, I'm keeping one of them because it'd just be a whole lot easier to maintain than it would be to start from scratch. And I bring this up because when you start a new business, a new product, a new offering, it is such a gamble. You don't know what is going to take off and when it's going to take off. I just had a friend say to me, okay, starting over, I got this amount of money in revenue. What would you spend it on? And the first thing I said to her is be as lean as possible because you just don't know how long it's going to take you. You don't know if this thing is going to take off in 30 days or if it's really not going to take off for 3 years. So you've got to be really, really careful. Now, because I'm saying a business is just really hard to start, it really is a gamble. And you have to be a certain type of person to want to keep playing this game. And sometimes you hit the jackpot and sometimes you don't. So I think season 1 was just sacrifice, 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 right? You get no return, no money, there's no profit. Profit doesn't exist. I'm not paying myself payroll yet. I'm paying everybody else, right? I'm starting to hire dance teachers and somebody to work the office and they're getting a paycheck. I'm not getting a paycheck. And I actually didn't pay myself in my business. This is gonna sound crazy, but I didn't pay myself in my studios, my dance studios, for the first 5 years. I worked for free. Okay. And I was okay with that because I was bartending and I was taking all of that cash and putting it back into the business. Now, I will say this, the business was profitable. I could have started paying myself, but I chose to take the money, the profit, and just put it back and put it back and put it back. And because I was getting bartending money, I was okay with it. And then my husband and I got married and he said, okay, I think I want you to quit bartending. Like, it's kind of weird now that we're married for you to still be bartending. Like, can we just focus on the studio? And I remember having such guilt of like, but I have to contribute to this family. So when I let go of bartending, and I agreed, I'd been bartending for 5 years, it was time. And honestly, guys, it was just a distraction to building the business. Because here's what I'm about to tell you. The second I said, okay, I'm done bartending, I looked at this business and said, it has to start making me money. I don't want to be married and him contributing and me not making a dollar in this business. So it made me think differently by letting go, right? I hear people say things like burn the boats. That was the moment that he kind of forced me to burn the boat, and it was the best thing he could have done. It was I wouldn't have done it. I would have kept sacrificing. And at some point, this theme of sacrificing turns into like this transitional period where you've got to start getting something out of it. I think for me, I was starting to lose a little bit motivation. And I'm telling you, like, delayed gratification, it's so good, right? But I started to become a little bit resentful of the business. Like, it wasn't paying me, it wasn't making me money. Why am I working so hard? I'm not even seeing any of this. I started spending a little bit, I don't know, I just was a little frivolous in my spending. I would buy things for the business that maybe I didn't necessarily need, or I wasn't gonna see this huge return on investment, but I was like, sure, why not? You know, it's not like I'm taking the money, at least I'll enjoy having this thing in the building or whatever it was. And I started to make really bad decisions. So I think there's a fine line between delayed gratification and the season where the transition starts to slowly, where you start to reward yourself, right? So there's a season where you need to start paying yourself at least something in small amounts. You want to start building a cash reserve, right? You want to start to look at this business and say, all right, it has a responsibility to pay the CEO. How do I start making myself be an employee and be appreciated and valued just like everybody else in this company? And what's funny is all of that just like gave me the burst of momentum I needed because I was starting to burn out, right? I was starting to get resentful. But now I'm focusing on just the business. I have more energy for the business. I'm no longer working 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., getting home at like 3:30 in the morning, right? And I would get home at 3:30 in the morning on a Friday night, and I would be at my studio at 8 a.m. teaching dance. Once I let go of that and I started focusing on this and it starts producing revenue and starts paying me, I now get fueled. It's like this next stage is just the small rewards start to replenish and refuel me. And that's when I think there's that pivotal moment of really starting to enjoy the journey. So this is where treat yourself, right? What is your weekly reward for a great week? What is your monthly reward? What is your quarterly reward? And it could be, we're gonna go out to dinner every Friday night. It could be, I'm gonna get a massage once a month. Like, I'm going to spend $80 or $100 and go get a massage because I've worked my butt off and I want to spend my money on that, right? Maybe quarterly you do a staycation or you spend a day at the spa, whatever it is. What can you start to do to reward and start to enjoy the journey a little bit more? I think for me, I'm grateful of my journey. I think if I could go back and talk to the old Stacy, I would have said, quit the bartending faster, start paying yourself sooner, start rewarding yourself sooner. I don't think that delayed gratification needs to be 5 years. I think it could have happened a little bit faster. And I think the numbers were telling me that. When I finally paid myself, it's because my CPA said, hey, the IRS is gonna start to get a little concerned here that you're not taking any money, right? And you have a business that's producing multiple 6 figures per year. Like, what's going on? He kind of forced me to do things. My husband said, you need to quit. And then the CPA is like, you need to start paying yourself. I needed people like that in my life to say, kind of shake me a little bit and go, what are you doing, right? What are you doing? Because you get so close to the business. You get so close to what you're doing and your head is down and you just don't see what's actually happening. So after that phase 2 of those small rewards, paying myself just a very fair, small salary. I think my first salary was $35,000 a year. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy, right? Because coming from a bartender, that's a lot of money, right? Even though it was probably like minimum wage, right? Very, very small at the time, but it was still something. And I was seeing it. And I think that's part of this too, is I've been very grateful and not, it should be more. I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Stop saying I should or it should be producing, right? Be grateful of where you're at in the journey and know that more is coming. And then this third stage of really just kind of stepping into I think what I would say like true success. We have a profitable business. I have not just financial wealth, but I have time wealth. We leave for vacation pretty much once a month. We have a home in Florida as well. We live in Wisconsin. We have a Florida home. We go there about once a month. We're doing amazing things, nice things. I'm able to buy whatever I really want to buy. But there's still this situation of, okay, where is the balance now? Because I don't want to just be blowing money on things either. I need to make sure that I have cash reserves for this business. Now I'm at a place where my payroll is hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So if I just want to have 3 months of my team's payroll saved up, I need a lot of money sitting in the bank. So in today's world, everything is just like magnified, right? My $60 a week allowance is just a lot bigger. My maybe savings account I needed for XYZ expenses is the same thing. It's just a lot bigger, right? It really had to grow with what has been happening. I'm still rewarding myself weekly and monthly and quarterly. They're just bigger rewards, right? It's all relative. So that's what I think the biggest part is that you really need to see is like every stage, what I was putting in and what I was getting out, right, is directly reflecting on what the business looked like. And as the business started to up level, I was able to pay myself more, right? Take bigger distributions, things like that. I'm proud of the decisions that I've made. They've been hard decisions. They haven't been the normal, typical decisions. I gave up a lot, but what I'm experiencing today is so much better than the things I ever gave up. They just don't even compare, right? It really is Dave Ramsey's story of live like no one else. I did that so that I can live like no one else, and I'm doing it. And I would go back, I would do it again. I would tell my kids to do it again. I would tell my kids to follow the same process. And I know I wouldn't be here. And when I say here, what does today look like? Well, in 2025, we're producing, I have 2 businesses now, generating over $10 million in annual revenue, producing over $1 million a month in just the one business alone. We're building our dream home. We just bought 7.5 acres of land. We just bought a ton of acreage that we're building our dream home on. We just put our Florida home on the market and built a different home in Florida. I have time wealth with my children. I get to spend as much time as I want with them. Things are in a really, really great place today. What I dreamed of as a 20-year-old, it's so much bigger than what I dreamed of. I didn't even know this was possible. And I do believe my actions and behaviors and my habits from my 20s is why I'm here today. There's this phrase that I always say to my clients: do you want more time or do you want more money? Which one do you want first? And I tell them to pick, because you can't chase both. If you chase both at the same time, you're not gonna get either, right? And that's really what I'm asking you, which one do you want? What do you need more of? And how do you double down on what that is? And no matter the outcome of if you want financial wealth or you want time wealth, there's going to be delayed gratification in the beginning, right? If you want time, the thing that you have to do is you have to put in all of your time to build the systems, to get the team, to eventually get the time. If you want money, right, you got to invest in these amazing people, marketing. You have to put in all this money to hopefully get it back, right? And most people won't do that. And most people will say no thank you, or they don't want to wait, or they think they can go get both, or they think they can build a business and not pour into their team and not pour into marketing and all of that, and they're just going to get it. And those are the people that are not sitting where you want to sit. So I think what we have to be careful with is what is normal, what an average person, average business owner is doing, what your competitors might be doing. It's not the path you want to take to get where you're going. You have to be really different to get different results that most people can't even dream of. I have done things that people would never want to do. I have done so many things that most business owners would say, no thank you. Never want to do what I've done, yet they all want the results of what it looks like when you do it. So the moral of this story is short-term sacrifices will yield long-term results that most people only dream of.